Listen to me carefully today. I'm not in a good mood, and I'm not here to be patient. So don't just open your damn ears. Open your damn heart and your damn mind, because I'm done talking softly to people who already know better. You knew what had to be done. You felt it every single day. And still you chose comfort over effort. You hid behind distractions and called it balance. You delayed, you scrolled. You negotiated with discipline like it was optional. You wasted time pretending you were tired when you were just afraid of pressure, afraid of focus, afraid of committing, afraid of finding out what happens if you stop running. You felt it decaying, you felt your edge slipping, and you did nothing. Listen, I'm not angry at you right now. I'm disappointed because you're not broken. You're just undisciplined. And that's worse because it's a choice. No chaos, no bad luck, no curse, just repeated decisions you were too comfortable to question. And now you stand there asking why nothing changed. As if progress happens by accident, as if focus appears when you feel like it. Discipline doesn't wait for your mood. Discipline responds to action. It responds when you show up. It responds when you stop running. You move or you stay stuck. You focus or you decay. Focus or stay lost. Choose and don't explain it. Prove it. You keep pretending you don't know what's wrong, like your own life is some complicated puzzle only geniuses can solve. But you know exactly what's wrong. You just don't like what it costs to fix it. And that's the funniest part. The part where you stare at your reflection with that practiced look of confusion, like you're an innocent bystander who just happened to wake up inside your own consequences. You act surprised by your fatigue, surprised by your unfinished work, surprised by the way your confidence dissolves the moment the room gets quiet. As if the hours didn't slip through your fingers one by one while you fed your attention to anything that asked for it, anything that sparkled, anything that promised relief without effort, anything that made you feel busy without making you better. And you know that little ritual you do? Yeah, that one. I'll start later after one more scroll, one more clip, one quick check, one more message that isn't urgent, isn't important, isn't even meaningful, just loud enough to keep you from hearing your own thoughts. You call it a break. I call it a trade. You trade your focus for comfort, your future for a few seconds of numbness, your potential for a cheap distraction. And then you wonder why your days feel thin, why your dreams feel distant, why your self-respect feels like a coat you left somewhere and can't find. Look at you always negotiating with yourself like you're two different people. One who wants a life worth living and one who wants to feel nothing for a while, and you keep letting the second one win because the second one is persuasive and tired and dramatic, and it whispers. Always whispers, you deserve to relax. You've been through a lot. You've earned an escape. And maybe you have. Maybe you're carrying things you don't talk about, hurts you keep folded up behind your ribs, the kind of disappointments that don't scream but still weigh. Maybe you've been ignored in rooms where you tried so hard to be seen. Maybe you were loyal to people who were careless with you. Maybe you built something with your bare hands and watched it collapse because you trusted the wrong voice or followed the wrong mood. I'm not here to deny that. I'm here to deny the lie you built on top of it. That pain gives you permission to drift. Pain explains you. It does not excuse you. That's the difference between a person who grows and a person who repeats. You're not weak because you feel it. You're weak when you let it steer. And you've been letting it steer, haven't you? The mood decides the schedule. The appetite decides the discipline. The phone decides the morning. The noise decides the mind. And then you call it life. Like you're just floating and there's nothing to be done. No, you're not floating. You're choosing over and over. The easiest version of each moment, and then acting shocked when the total of those moments is a life you don't recognize. I can see the pattern on you like fingerprints. The late start that becomes a late day. The half-finished task that becomes a half-finished week. The promise you make at night that evaporates by morning. The burst of motivation you waste on planning instead of doing. The advice you collect like shiny coins, never spending any of it. And the worst part, you're smart enough to know better. That's what makes you tired. You're not confused, you're split. You are a person with standards who keeps living beneath them. That friction is exhausting. That friction is the dull ache behind your eyes when you sit down to work and your mind resists like a door that hasn't been opened in a long time. That friction is why you feel guilty even when you're resting, because deep down, you can tell the difference between rest and avoidance. And you've been calling avoidance 1,000 polite names so you don't have to face it. Listen, I'm not going to flatter you. Flattery is for people who want you calm, easy, agreeable. I want you awake. You don't need more inspiration. You need more obedience to your own decisions. You need focus, not as a mood, but as a rule you follow. Even when you're bored, even when you're restless, even when no one is watching, even when the world offers you endless exits. And yes, it will feel dark at first, because distraction is bright and focus is quiet, and quiet is where your regrets live. Quiet is where you remember what you lost, what you wasted, who you disappointed, what you said you would become. Quiet is where you feel the loneliness you've been drowning in noise. So of course you run. Of course you keep your ears full, and your hands busy and your mind scattered, because if you stop, you'll have to meet yourself. And you're afraid of that meeting. Afraid you won't like what you see. Afraid you'll see what you already know, that you've been treating your life like it's disposable time. Don't drift. You think focus is just about work. It's deeper than that. Focus is the ability to stay with discomfort without bargaining for escape. Focus is the ability to choose one thing and honor it long enough for it to change you. Focus is patience with your own growth, the kind that doesn't need applause. Focus is self-control in plain clothes. And you don't lack potential, you lack follow-through, less glamorous, less talked about, less shareable. That's why most people never build it. They want the highlight without the habit, the title without the training, the result without the repetition. Then they sit in the rubble of their own inconsistency and call it bad luck. You've been telling yourself a story. I'll become disciplined once I feel better, once life gets easier, once I have more time, once I find the perfect system, once someone finally treats me the way I deserve. But discipline doesn't arrive after life calms down. Discipline is what you use to stay steady while life shakes. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll wait your whole life. And you know it. That's why you're anxious. Not because you're doomed, but because you can sense time moving and you can sense yourself not moving with it. You feel it when you see someone your age building something real. You feel it when an old friend talks about progress and you smile and nod while something inside you tightens. You feel it when you lie down at night and your mind plays the scenes you avoided all day. The email you didn't send, the project you delayed, the skill you promised to learn, the conversation you postponed, the body you neglected, the sleep you sacrificed, the principles you compromised. And you tell yourself, tomorrow. Tomorrow is a beautiful word, isn't it? Soft, forgiving. It makes you feel like you're still the kind of person who will do it. Tomorrow is how you stay the hero in your imagination while doing nothing in reality. But reality doesn't pay you for intentions. Reality pays you for output, for consistency, for reliability, for the boring courage of showing up again and again. And if you want career growth, if you want respect, if you want to lead anything, yourself, your family, your team, your future, you cannot keep being the person who disappears the moment things feel heavy. Leadership isn't volume, it's steadiness. Leadership is doing what you said you would do, especially when you're not in the mood. Leadership is the ability to be trusted, not just liked. And that starts in small places. When your alarm goes off, when you sit down to work, when you feel the impulse to check, to snack, to wander, to escape. Every impulse is a little vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You keep thinking you need one giant transformation, some dramatic moment where you wake up unstoppable. No, that's the fantasy of people who love stories more than they love work. The truth is less cinematic and more powerful. You become unstoppable by making small promises and keeping them until they harden into identity. You want focus? Stop acting like focus is talent. Treat it like practice. You train it the way you train muscle. Repeated tension, controlled form, honest recovery. You sit down, you do one thing, not 10, not 5, 1. You do it badly if you must, but you do it. You do it while your brain complains, while your phone calls your name like a meaty child, while your emotions put on their little performance. Because your emotions are not your boss. They are weather. They pass, but your habits are architecture. They remain. And if you're living inside a messy structure, stop blaming the weather and rebuild the walls. One more truth. You've been using your pain as a hiding place. I can tell because you talk about it in ways that make you feel deep, but not in ways that make you change. You keep revisiting the same betrayals, the same disappointments, the same scenes, like sacred artifacts, like if you stare long enough, they'll give you a pass. They won't. They will either teach you or trap you. And right now they're trapping you because you use them to justify inconsistency. You say, I was hurt, so I can't focus. I was ignored, so I can't try. I was betrayed, so I can't trust my own effort. Listen to me. Being hurt doesn't remove your responsibility. It adds to it. Because now you must learn how to carry pain without letting it spill into every area of your life. That is adulthood. That is emotional regulation. That is self-control. And not pretending you feel nothing, not acting tough, not wearing confidence while you quietly collapse. Real strength is being honest about what you feel and still choosing the next right action. You can grieve and still work. You can feel lonely and still build. You can feel angry and still speak with restraint. You can feel tired and still protect your standards. That is discipline. Not denial of emotion, but refusal to be ruled by it. And if you want to reclaim focus in a world designed to steal it, you must become deliberate. Stop being available to everything. Become selective. Become stubborn about what enters your mind. Not every notification deserves your pulse. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every urge deserves obedience. You're afraid of missing something, but you are missing something. You're missing your ability to go deep. You're missing the satisfaction of finishing you. You're missing the quiet pride of keeping your word. You're missing the confidence that comes from competence, not performance. You don't get that from scrolling. You don't get that from consuming. You don't get that from dreaming. You get it from doing the work when it's boring, when it's slow, when it's unglamorous. You get it from structure, wake time, work blocks, limits on noise, a space that tells your mind, this is where we focus. And when you fail, because you will, you don't collapse into drama. You don't turn one mistake into a week of mistakes. You reset, you return, you continue. Because the person you want to be isn't the person who never falls off. It's the person who gets back on quickly without making it a tragedy. That is resilience. That is patience. That is maturity. And now the cruel part you secretly need to hear. You are not helpless. You are not cursed. You are not confused. You are trained, which means you can be retrained. Focus isn't found, it's enforced. So enforce it not with chaos, not with hatred, with standards. Decide what your day is for and refuse to let noise rewrite it. Decide what your work block is for and refuse to let impulse interrupt it. Decide what your life is for and refuse to drift. Because drift is not rest. Drift is surrender with a comfortable name. You keep waiting for the version of you who doesn't struggle to arrive. Like one morning you'll wake up and the work will feel easy and the phone will feel boring and the cravings will feel irrelevant and the mind will feel quiet. That version doesn't arrive. That version is built through repetition that looks unimpressive from the outside and feels uncomfortable on the inside. Built through the boring heroism of starting when you don't want to. Built through staying when your brain begs for a shortcut. Built through finishing small things when your ego demands big results. Let me tell you what's really been happening in your head because you act like it's mysterious, but it's not. You have two voices. One is quiet and honest, and it speaks in simple sentences. Do the work. Start now. Stop scrolling. Go to sleep. Keep your promise. And the other voice is theatrical. It tells stories. It performs just 5 minutes. You deserve it. You'll do it later. You're tired. You're stressed. It's not the right time. What's the point? And you keep mistaking the louder voice for the wiser one because it sounds confident, because it sounds familiar, because it protects you from the only thing that can change you: consistent effort. Here's what focus actually is in practice. Focus is not winning the whole day. Focus is winning the next decision, the next click, the next bite, the next excuse, the next "I'll do it later," the next moment where your hand reaches for the easy exit before your brain even finishes the thought. That's where your life is decided. Not in your big speeches, not in your plans. In that tiny, ordinary crossroads you meet 100 times a day. And I know you hate hearing this because it removes drama. It removes the fantasy of a single breakthrough. It forces you to accept the truth. You are shaped by what you repeatedly do when it's unglamorous. That's why most people stay average. They don't lack information. They lack tolerance for boredom. They want results fast. They want feedback fast. They want praise fast. They want proof fast. But life rewards the person who can work without immediate reward, because that person becomes rare. Now listen, this part matters. Your focus is being stolen by 1,000 tiny decisions you refuse to admit are decisions. You call them habits, like habits are weather, like habits happen to you, like you're not the one feeding them every day. You don't end up scrolling. You choose to open, you choose to stay, you choose to keep going, you choose to trade. And the reason you hate that word choose is because it makes you responsible. Good, be responsible. Responsibility is freedom with a spine. You want a mind you can trust? Then stop betraying it in small ways. Stop telling it we start at 9 and then letting 9,003 become 940 because you wanted comfort. Stop telling it we'll study today and then turning today into after I feel better. Stop telling it I'm serious while living like nothing is urgent. Your mind stops believing your words because your actions keep contradicting them. That's why you feel anxious, because you live with an inner witness, and the witness has been watching you lie. Here's the brutal correction. Start keeping small promises so your mind relearns trust. Not big promises. Big promises are easy. Big promises are cheap theater. Small promises are expensive. Small promises cost you the urge. They cost you the comfort. They cost you the little escape. That's why they matter. So, pick one promise for tomorrow. 1. Something measurable and boring. 20 minutes of deep work before I touch my phone. 1 page of notes before I check anything. 1 workout set before I decide I'm tired. 1 focus block before I earn entertainment and then keep it. No performance, no announcement, no drama, just proof. And yes, you'll feel resistance. Of course you will. Resistance is the border between who you've been and who you're trying to become. Don't fear it, use it. When resistance shows up, that's your cue. Good. This is the training. Most people run the moment training starts. They call it listening to myself. They call it protecting my peace. They call it whatever sounds mature. But it's just avoidance with perfume. Focus isn't cruelty. Focus is clarity. Focus is the ability to say, this matters more than what I feel right now. And then act accordingly. That's the line. That's the whole game. And I'm going to be honest with you. You've been letting people, noise, and impulses colonize your mind like you don't own it. Like your attention belongs to whoever shouts loudest. It doesn't. Your attention is property and you've been giving away the keys. You want it back, then start acting like an owner. Owners set rules. Owners lock doors. Owners don't apologize for boundaries. You keep your phone near you while you work, then act shocked you can't focus. You keep 10 tabs open, then act shocked your mind is scattered. You sleep late, then act shocked. You're impulsive. You eat chaos, then act shocked. You feel chaos. It's not mysterious, it's math. And here's the twist you don't expect from me. I'm not asking you to become harsh. I'm asking you to become consistent. Harsh people burn out. Consistent people build. Consistency is what turns a mediocre day into a meaningful year. Consistency is what turns a weak mood into a strong identity. Consistency is what makes you reliable. And reliability is what makes you respected. You want to be feared. Wrong goal. Be trusted. Be the person who shows up. Be the person who finishes. Be the person whose word means something, because right now your word doesn't mean enough and you feel it. Focus again, not as a burst, as a practice, as a standard, and tomorrow when your hand reaches for the easy exit, catch it not with anger, with authority. Because you are not here to be entertained. You are here to become someone you respect. And that begins the next time you choose the hard thing without making it dramatic. And don't you dare treat that word like a chant you repeat when you want to feel strong. It's not a spell. It's a choice you prove. Because your mind loves performance. It loves big moments. It loves the little surge you get when you hear something intense and imagine yourself changing. And then the moment the audio ends, your old habits come back like loyal dogs. That's why your life hasn't moved. You keep rehearsing change instead of living it. Let's make it real, not inspirational. Real. There are only 3 reasons you lose focus. Not 15, not 100. 3. 1. You let too much in. 2. You refuse to sit with discomfort. 3. You confuse emotion with instruction. That's it. That's the entire tragedy. You let too much in. Too many voices, too many opinions, too much noise, too many tabs open, too many half commitments. And then you wonder why your mind feels like a crowded room where nobody can hear themselves think. Of course, you can't focus. You turned your attention into public property. Then you refuse to sit with discomfort. The moment the work gets slow, the moment progress doesn't reward you immediately, the moment your brain starts itching for novelty, you run. You call it taking care of myself. You call it resetting, but it's escape. And then you confuse emotion with instruction. You treat boredom like a warning. You treat anxiety like a stop sign. You treat fatigue like permission to quit. And feelings are terrible leaders. Feelings are weather. Leaders don't obey weather. They prepare for it. So, I'm going to give you a new rule. You don't ask how you feel before you work. You work, then you observe how you feel. You do the first step, then you let mood catch up. You don't wait for mood to escort you like a bodyguard. Mood is not your bodyguard. Mood is a liar in a suit. You want variety? Fine, here's variety without chaos. There are 2 modes you must master. Deep mode and reset mode, nothing else. Deep mode is when you do one thing and you do it clean. No switching, no half scrolling, no I can multitask. You can't. You can only split. Reset mode is short, intentional recovery. Water, breath, stretch, a walk, a simple meal, a short break with an end. Reset mode is not a slippery door into 2 hours of nothing. You don't need freedom. You need structure that protects freedom from your impulses. And yes, your impulses will get louder at first because you've been feeding them daily, sometimes hourly. When you stop feeding something, it screams. Don't mistake screaming for need. It's withdrawal. Now, I want to talk about something you never talk about honestly, shame. That quiet shame you carry when you fall behind, the shame that makes you avoid your work because the moment you look at it, you remember how long you avoided it. The shame that makes you avoid people because you don't want them to see you stuck. The shame that makes you scroll because scrolling doesn't judge you. Shame is a trap. It pretends to be a teacher, but it's just a cage. Because when you feel ashamed, you want comfort. And comfort creates more avoidance. And avoidance creates more shame. It's a loop. And you've been living inside loops. Here's the correction. You stop using shame as proof that you're bad, and you use it as a signal that you're out of alignment. Alignment is not perfection. Alignment is honesty. When you're out of alignment, you don't punish yourself. You return to your standard. You do the next small right action. That's how loops break. You want a mind trick? Fine, I'll give you one. But it's not magic, it's leverage. Think of one task you've been avoiding. Don't pick the biggest one. Pick the one that makes you tense up just thinking about it. Now tell me inside your head what you're afraid will happen if you start. Is it that you'll fail? Is it that you'll discover it's harder than you imagined? Is it that you'll have to admit you wasted time? Is it that you'll have to face how undisciplined you've become? Good. That's the real enemy, not the task, the emotional bill attached to it. So, here's the trick. You do not start the task. You start the doorway. You open the document. You lay out the materials. You write the first sentence. You solve the first problem. You do the first set, or just the doorway. And then you stop asking, can I do all of it? You ask, can I do the next minute? 1 minute is too small for your ego to panic over. That's why it works. So here's the rule you don't want. Stay 5 minutes longer than you want to. When you feel the urge to stop, stay 5 minutes. When your mind says enough, stay 5 minutes. Not forever, just 5. Those 5 minutes are where the shift happens. They teach your brain something new. We don't run at the first sign of discomfort. Do that enough times and something changes. Your mind stops panicking so quickly. It learns patience. It learns endurance. And endurance is what you've been missing. Not intelligence, not ability, not opportunity. Endurance. Endurance is staying with a thought until it sharpens. Endurance is staying with a task until it yields. Endurance is staying with yourself until you trust yourself. And trust is the foundation of confidence, not hype, not arrogance. Trust. Right now, you don't trust yourself, and that's why your mind feels unstable. You promise, you break it, you promise again. Your mind learned the pattern. So break it. Promise less. Keep more. Focus again.